And then, no, I'll be looking for it. I'm like, no, I don't see it. And then she's like, right there. And then it's like this like smallest little like jagged line. I'm like, well, now that you pointed it out like that, yes, I see it. But prior to you saying right there, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the Riley Black Project. Crystal and John.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going.
Cool. Let's read off the list so we can introduce our guests.
Okay. So we have Victor, Cheyenne, Katie, Melissa, Camille, Lisa, David, Alex, Stephanie, Barbie, Madison, Danny, Emily, Amanda, Mark, Kathy, Ryan, and Will.
All right.
We need to get to the point where there's so many we can't read them.
No. You know what? We need to get to the point where I just roll it.
Ooh.
Roll the text.
That's a good. But that's what I mean. So we get to the point where I can't.
And here we go. And then we play like the cheesy music. Right. Just roll to me like, thank you guys for being part of the podcast.
But like movie credits.
Yeah. But as always, thank you guys for subscribing to the Patreon. Yes. We really appreciate it. This is a great point. Hey, like and subscribe. We're almost there. We're at like 911.
It's so happy.
It's so happy. Yeah. We're like at 911.
Yeah,
subscribers on YouTube. So like and subscribe.
Yeah.
For that. So today you're gonna have to introduce our guests because you never told me
in the intro.
Yeah, in the pre-show.
Oh crap! And I didn't.
You're gonna have to.
I'm gonna mess up the name because it's like initials.
Easy. See, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, but we didn't cover it before.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
welcome our guests.
We'll do some wonderful editing, maybe.
Nope, I'm leaving all this in, and this is probably gonna be the little clip at the intro, or at least one of the teasers. So welcome our guests.
Hi, Braden with GS2 Awards.
You got it.
Right.
Like, does the two before go before the S or after?
It's artistic. You'll get it.
Right. So for everybody else, tell us your company name without me butchering it.
It is actually GS2 Awards.
Okay. And
so you got it perfect.
Where did the name come from?
My original company, which then came from my grandfather's company's name. Okay. So going way back. So we had an engraving business for 14, 15 years.
Wow.
And that was Glassmith too. And I basically got tired of feeling like we were hiding how we did everything and what products we used because it was an industry secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, not my style. So in 2019, we made the decision to go wholesale and then form GS2 Awards. And we were primarily going after the awards blanks market and then material supply and everything like that. 2020 hit and it was spectacular.
Right.
Yeah.
For most everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the trade shows that we prepaid for were gone. We had the entire nation mapped out doing a trade show in almost every state. And it would all just ended overnight. Right. So that was crazy.
Well, so you had to do some major pivoting then, right? I mean, what did you guys do? How did you get through that? Because I mean, you basically had planned out your year, and the universe was like, just kidding.
So whenever COVID first hit around here, everything was shut down unless you're the essential business. Right. And with that, we teamed up with originally starting with 2 people, Make for COVID. So they went through all of the makers in Colorado. Anyone that had a 3D printer or laser cutter or any kind of service.
Are you in Colorado?
Yes.
Where?
Boulder.
Oh, nice.
I'm a native from Colorado. I lived there until 4 years ago. Yeah. So for 35 years.
And I was there for 5.
Yeah. So yeah, I lived in Aurora, basically my whole life. Yeah.
I live there too. 6th generation in Boulder.
Nice.
So we've been here for a long time.
Yeah. Huh. That's cool. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So we teamed up with Make for COVID, and at that point it was just 2 of them, and then I came on. So we started sourcing all the PET G for the face masks for the hospitals because all supply chains were done.
Right.
So we ended up teaming up with them, and then by the end of it, we actually teamed up with Civil Air Patrol to do flights to rural hospitals, dropping off all of the face shields and PPE that they needed for the hospitals.
That's cool.
I believe we ran about 50,000 face shields for those guys.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was crazy. So
Yeah.
that kind of helped get us through, and then more into the product and sheet stock, and then give a little time to redevelop some other things for GS2 Awards as well.
Right. So let's go back a little bit to, I guess, the original company and the laser engraving. So lasers have been around for a really long time, but like you said, a lot of times they were like, you didn't know how it happened, and you kind of kept that part secret because that's how you kind of kept, like, I guess, protected your space, right?
Yeah, your edge.
Yeah. And so you said your grandfather, right? How did he get into it? Like, how did he find it? And then, like, how did that grow?
So we're talking pre-lasers at this point. So he started out sandblasting. So it was strictly sandblasted glass and use an X-Acto knife to cut your stencils and then carve the pieces. You have resist now, where you can use basically a UV kind of transfer. So you expose it in electrolyte and then wash it out, and then you can hand place it. Back then, he had to mail in his pattern and wait for them to mail back the stencils.
Wow.
So crazy different realm. And then he also did stained glass too. So so that's where he started. He never saw laser, touch the laser, until I kind of came around and started doing everything on my own.
And then, so how did you find them? Were they just more like prevalent then, or was it still kind of a not very known?
Not very known, but so I was just doing sandblasting, and I was one-man shop, 500 square foot place, and I needed to earn more money without using more time. So being the crazy researcher I am, I started diving into this rabbit hole and found that's whenever I found laser mask, and that you could use it with a laser. So I could skip the exposing, the washing out, the hang dry for an hour, hand placing, and then put items in the laser, cut the design, sandblast it, and be done.
Right.
So that's whenever I went over to Epilogue, actually, and my first laser was a Helix from them.
Okay, nice.
And sold my car to afford it, walked to work until I could afford to buy something else again.
That's dedication.
Yeah. Like, so whenever I said my grandfather started everything, he was long since retired. He had post polio, heart failure, and everything else, so he was done. But I grew up around sandblasting, stained glass, fused glass, slump glass. So it was just in my blood.
You grew up around an entrepreneur as well, like of him, like, you know, growing and creating, and, you know,
trade shows and all the glass markets.
Right.
So it's me through and through. I sandblasted my first beer mug in, I think, right around like 1985.
Wow.
So I believe that put me in like first grade.
I was gonna say
you don't look old enough, but
you had
like,
to be really
yes, a year old at that point. So
you go to the grandparents' house for like Christmas and Thanksgiving, and there's nothing much to do except for go to Grandpa's blast room. Right. So that's what we did.
Totally. I mean, I remember when I used to visit my grandparents, you know, in Grand Junction, I would always like go to the garage. What's Grandpa working on? Like you're really, as a kid, you're fascinated by that stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, even my kids are, but I have to get better at like letting them look.
That's what I was saying.
I kick them out of my. I'm not gonna touch anything.
I was gonna say that the interest comes from the you know, you're always told, oh, you know, like step away, like, you know, don't go in there or whatever, because of the tool. So it's like, well, what's in there? I want to see.
I can see JR, especially when he gets older now. I mean, seeing his ability to draw for a 5-year-old. I don't know if it's just like we're impressed because we're parents, but it's actually pretty decent for a 5-year-old.
And the fact that he's able to, because he drew
share what he did the other day, which I was impressed by
on his own. So he likes to color. He's definitely a colorer. But he was watching on YouTube how to draw Sonic. I guess it was.
He watched a YouTube tutorial.
I don't know if it came up or whatever
on YouTube,
but he watched it first, and then he was. I think in his mind, he's like, I think I can do that. So he asked me. He's like, Daddy, can I get my crayons and paper so I can draw.
Right.
I want to draw Sonic like they do on TV. So I said, okay, because it's free entertainment. Like,
right.
That means I have like at least 15, 20 minutes
right.
that I don't have to worry about him. Well, this kid sat and he was watching it and drawing and following step by step. And obviously he's no Picasso.
Do you know where it is?
It's out there somewhere. I don't know exactly where.
We'll have to try and find it. Maybe put it in after editing. But
it looks like Sonic.
It
really for a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And for a 5-year-old who's never drawn Sonic and just watched one tutorial,
he doesn't even know how to spell Sonic. Right. He can't write.
No, I think he can because he typed it in. I saw it typed in, and I didn't do it.
So what he does is what does he do? Like if it's I don't know, say it's Disney or something, right? And he wants to look up more Disney. If he has a toy that says it, he can identify the letters. So then he'll go to the search and then he'll type in the letters that are on the.
Very resourceful.
Yeah, and I'm like, you can't write. Like, how did you type that in to search for it? Yeah. Because he would.
My daughter uses the microphone and then just says it, and then it types it in for her. She was texting me. I was like, "How are you doing this?"
Right? Yeah. So he was the first one we started using the voice on the remote. The kids YouTube. But then the problem with once you get to kids YouTube, then you can't use the voice anymore to like type or search once you're in there. But yeah, it was pretty damn impressive. And then I thought about it. I'm pretty sure he's seen me do that before. So like if I'm trying to learn how to draw something that I just, I'll attempt to draw it on my own. And if it's not going so well, then I'll look up, a YouTube tutorial on how to draw it.
Right.
And so I've done that for things like, drawing like a sack or a bag. And I'm like, I don't know where the folds need to go to make it look, like it should.
I wonder if Natalie goes to YouTube for Trump Lloyd.
Probably not, because she's a fucking professional. Like,
if you haven't checked her out on Instagram, check her out on Instagram.
Natalie Featherston.
N Featherston.
_Featherston.
Featherston.
Fine art or something like that. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so when you said that, I thought, which that I'm usually doing on my side of the couch and he's over here.
Right.
But they see a lot more than you think.
Yeah,
and I'm maybe that's where he saw it. Or again, it might have just come up because of his like whatever. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got on that.
Kids, like kids doing, seeing things and just doing,
not picking it up, latching onto it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you were sandblasting at a very young age.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, sandblasting at a young age, and then at 17, I taught myself how to do stained glass, just because it was a cheaper way to get into the art market compared to buying the sandblaster and all the other equipment. And then I went to Penn State, put myself through school there. Had excess tuition aid one year, so I came out and had my grandfather show me for a day and a half how to sandblast again, less little kid driven and more how to do it correctly. So I used my excess tuition aid to buy my first blast cabinet, pressure pot, electrolyte from Resist. And then by the time I was done at Penn State, I was selling them awards.
Nice.
Wow.
So, and then, so that just kind of stuck. And it was, by all means, it was a Harbor Freight, low quality piece that ran for like 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
So
even if you have like the background and you've done all the research and you've done all the practice, there's almost no way to like, because you continue to grow from that point. So even if it's amazing and it's really good, you don't stay at that skill level.
Right.
So then always, anytime you go back and you look at your first few projects, while like, I go back and I look at that, the porthole window, LED sign that I made, which I don't know, like the fact that I tackled that and was like, I can make that is one of my first few signs was insane, but I can still look at it and be like, I made that so much harder than it needed to be. Like it took me days where now it wouldn't take me nearly as long. Exactly.
Easier.
Yeah. But it's crazy that even no matter how much skill you come into it, because he came basically kind of with a background of like how to do it and, kind of like passed down from family. And you still look at your first few and you're like, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
So those people don't know either. because the people you're gifting it to or the people you're selling it to, typically they don't know, they won't see those flaws that you see 5 years later, 10 years later, whatever, because.
So that's hilarious because my grandfather and I both will make something and we can't look at it for at least 2 to 3 weeks to actually be able to appreciate it. Because we're still picking out every single flaw, anything wrong with it, and you have to like put it aside. Everybody loves it, but you.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll show him stuff all the time, and I'll be like super bothered by something, and he'll be like,
see it.
"What?" And I'm like, right there, and he's like,
It's that game. It's that game. Hey, here, look at this. Do you see anything wrong with it? I'm like, no, it looks great. She's like, you don't see that, whatever. I'm like,
you're not even trying to look.
Yeah.
No, I'll be looking for it. I'm like, no, I don't see it. And then she's like, right there. And then it's like this like smallest little like jagged line. I'm like, well, now that you pointed it out like that, yes, I see it. But prior to you saying right there, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah. The worst.
I'm like, I'm sure whoever you're giving this to is not going to see it either.
Right. Well, it's hard because like when it's one, it's your project and you know what it should look like, and two, just your brain, the way it works, I can't see it through your eyes.
Right.
I don't know how to not see that 1 or 2 or 3 little imperfections.
I think it's like he said, you have to walk away from it for a certain amount of time and then come back.
Stay away longer.
Yeah, right.
I just need to not look at it again and just give it to them and hope that they love it and they don't see it.
We'll fix it.
Yeah. Well, and what I used to do, I used to shoot myself in the foot in the beginning because I was so self-conscious about that stuff, and that, I was going to give it to them and they were going to see it and then just not say anything to me, because most people, if there are a couple flaws, unless it's enough to like want it remade or want a refund, they're not going to say anything, right? They're not going to be like, oh, it's great, but this is off center, or you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I would shoot myself in the foot and point out the flaws that they probably would have never seen. And I'm like, don't do that.
Then they'll never unsee it.
Right, exactly. Like that's not going to help you either.
And then point out the flaws.
Right, exactly. Like
part of the design.
Yes, right. Well, and I mean, it goes into being handmade. Yes, there's gonna be some imperfections because we're human and we're not right. And I mean, hell, you look at the robots, the stuff that robots make or that were made on like mass production. There's tons of fucking flaws on all of those things. Yeah. Oh, that just reminded me. Did the post of Barbie's daughter not wanting her to listen to the podcast because of all my
swearing?
I was like,
where's the beeper?
We made it about 20 minutes. I think maybe
Cindy's comment killed me. She wanted she's like, what about edited versions? And Cindy commented, she said that would sound like a test of the emergency broadcast. I don't know where I was going with that, but
imperfections.
Yeah, but I mean, so the mass produced stuff, if you go to Hobby Lobby and all those signs that are typically mass produced, they have glue seepage, they're crooked, they're not, there's
cracking.
Right. And they're not the greatest quality, again, because they are mass produced and they're done quickly and they're maybe not done to make sure I'm not crying.
Thank you.
My eyes.
It was bothering me. I'm looking at you, I'm like, her eyes tearing. You
shut up. But there's tons of flaws and we're like, oh, okay, that's great, I'll pay $45 for it. But God forbid if someone makes it by hand, we sit here and at least in our head expect it to be flawless. Anyway, I'm super scatterbrained today. So you went from college, and then so did you immediately start like your own thing? Was he still doing it then, or like where did it go?
No, he was long done then as well. So I was out in Pennsylvania, and then the mentality from like business school at Penn State is you have to go get a job, you have to do this profession and be all prosperous. So I ended up signing on with Pepsi, doing territorial sales routes, and it was like a campus hire program. So that lasted for a little bit. And then the weirdest thing is I actually ended up getting migraines where I'd lose part of my vision.
Ooh,
so Yeah, fun thing. Since that happened, they thought it was like some kind of a seizure related item. So they pulled my driver's license.
Oh,
And Pepsi said, you can't do your job, you're fired.
right.
So, life turning event. What do? You go
Right.
home.
Yeah.
So I came home. I had $600 in my bank account, and this is like a long time ago now, like 2008, 2007. So I took that $600 and put it down for shop rent, and basically cleaned out my bank account. Had my original sandblast cabinet, and that's all I had. So my goal was to make shop rent each month. After I made shop rent, then I'd either get a haircut or eat. And so literally there's a stretch of like 2 weeks with no food because there was no money.
Wow.
So, and then my wife, we were dating at the time, and she was telling her mom about this guy she met and all this other stuff, and that he's self-employed. And she said that that's not normal. You have to have a job. And so she threatened to break up with me if I didn't have a job because it's not normal to be self-employed.
Oh, no.
so I got a job selling.
But spoiler alert.
I got a job with Coca-Cola. And so I did like the route sales with them for 2 months, and was so inundated with customers needing orders done that I had to walk away from it and go back to the business. And so now she works here too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how does the mother-in-law feel about the job now?
It's whenever I propose, I trying to be traditional and respectful. I called to ask for permission.
Right. Yeah.
They did say we're gonna have to call you back.
Oh. Right. I had like there was a pause. So I called her dad.
My dad, little backstory, he has Parkinson's, and so even before Parkinson's, he would have these like long pauses, like while he would think about something or before he's gonna say something. And I'm the opposite. I talk through it out loud, whatever my brain is thinking, and then you just need to listen to like the last part, because that other part
that's what it's figured out.
But like my dad and my sister, it's all in their head, and then they say it out loud. So I'm sitting here like, why aren't you talking? Why aren't you answering me? Anyway, he was already like that. And then Parkinson's kind of like delayed things a little bit more with his speech and stuff. And so when
let me tell you, when I said,
didn't know this after.
I said, I went into calling him with like, well, so first off, I didn't even have his phone number. I didn't have like his actual phone number. I had to reach out to him on Facebook to ask him for his phone number, which already kind of gave it away.
Why didn't you ask my sister?
Huh? I don't know. Monday morning quarterback over here. Why don't you just ask?
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, right? So I was, I had already. So it kind of like, well, why is he? There's only one reason he's asking me for my phone number or whatever, and we're already like 2 years into our relationship.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like anything new, but so I was 100. Like I was positive, like he was gonna say yes.
Yeah, because he really liked you.
We had a good relationship. There was nothing pointed to a no.
Right.
Until I asked him, and he paused. And that pause, I don't know how long it was, but in my mind, it was 4 days, because I was able. That pause moment, I went through all. Like I instantly doubted everything. Like, wait, maybe he doesn't like me. Well, there was that one time where I said this joke and he didn't laugh. And then there's this other time, like all that ran through my head during this pause. And then he, obviously said yes, but but that pause was so killer. So I can only imagine we'll have to get back to you on that one.
Right.
Yeah. And in their defense, they did just get back home from Germany. So they just got back off the long flight and were wiped.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you dropped this bomb.
Right. Well, and so my mom is similar in, like me starting the business when you had a job lined up when we moved here. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a huge thing, because what is going on with my eyes? Stop watering.
She gets very sensitive about these topics.
So, it's not as scary for like a parent when, my spouse already has a
Right.
job lined up and we're
Right.
planning on me being, stay at home for at least some part of time. Right. Well, then
we didn't know that it was going to grow either. It was just like a hobby side gig.
Well, because it was already like a hobby side gig, and we're like, okay, let's see where this can go.
Right.
At the very least, again, like going into it, I was like, if I can pay a couple of the bills, like if I can pay like the cable and the utility, it's a win. You know what I mean? Because I'm contributing something while also not paying for daycare and staying home with JR. And I know that both of them were kind of like just cautious and, weren't so sure about it, because if it's not like in your family history, it's kind of scary and unknown to them, because you're like, oh, what are you going to do about health insurance? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? Like,
not get sick.
Right. And and the fear is just in what they know and what they're used to, and making sure that you're okay. It's really not from like a negative place.
No,
it's just
self-employment always had that like I don't even know the word, but
stigma.
It had that stigma of like you don't really make money. Like people who are self-employed are like, have assistants. They don't make it on just their self-employment.
Right.
Where like now, especially after, what happened in 2020, a lot of people went the self-employment route. So now it's a little more commonplace.
Right.
But back then, it's you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, and you die.
Well, and
like,
even
that's
and you must get promoted and have the biggest house on the block.
You get promoted along the way.
Well, and that was
you
the
get
other
the
thing
biggest
too.
house.
I mean, my mom, she's done really well in her career.
Right.
And, I was doing well in my career, almost kind of following her footsteps, but it wasn't like the right fit for me. She absolutely loves what she's doing.
Yeah.
I hated every day that I had to enter those stupid, like, it was basically like glorified, well-paid data entry is what I was doing, entering like
very well paid
invoice. It was, I don't even make that now, but I mean, almost, if we look at the sales numbers, I beat it.
If you look at everything, minus expenses and everything else, the gross number is really nice.
Is great. It's bigger.
That's really nice.
Way bigger than
but then it tapers really hard.
It does.
It has a really hard bottleneck.
Yeah.
We gotta fix.
We're working on
those designs because that bottleneck,
man. But so I get where that comes from. And even then, up until recently, we were kind of like hitting some rough spots. And she was like, oh, well, why don't you like go get a job? I don't know if she called it a real job or just a job. I was like, and I go,
but
Mom,
it's always
I
a real
have a job.
Yeah, but it's always like a real job.
You know what I mean? And so even then, it kind of like made me second guess it. And it made me like think, oh, okay, am I not, cut out for this? Or like, do I need to like go back to like corporate world or whatever? But I know now, once you have a taste of self-employment, it's not all gumdrops and roses. But going back to working for someone, I would have a huge problem with authority.
Going back to work for the man.
And
I couldn't do it.
No, that's what I mean. Like, I'll take the really hard, stressful, overthinking, anxiety. Am I going to be able to pay my bills over someone else telling me what I have to do, someone else controlling how much I'm making, like controlling my path? Because I did have a lot of people in the past that, like, especially in the corporate world, when we were there, you had to have the piece of paper that told you were qualified, not your skills.
Right.
And that was so frustrating because I hated school. And so I went to school, me and my sister, for 11 years for a degree. She is actually using hers. But the second I graduated, I actually quit my corporate job. Yeah.
Really? Because I remember we went back for graduation.
Well, so as soon as I completed my final class,
we were just
I quit my job and then I graduated, went to the actual graduation ceremony, 2 months later.
Right.
But my fucking brain, man, it now is just like.
You forgot where you were?
Yeah. Well, but so what I was saying was, like, my sister, before she had her actual degree, she was doing the same exact stuff that the other people were doing with a degree, getting paid $20K more. And they would tell her they can't pay her $20K more because she doesn't have the piece of paper. But she's already doing the work. Right. She has the skill. She has the knowledge. And usually you're doing it better than the person who does have the piece of paper. And so like shit like that is not, no, it doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me then, but now, you know.
So how was it? Because you said your wife is now part of the company. Assuming she had a 9 to 5 before, how was that transition?
She has her PhD in chemistry, actually.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was teaching college classes for chemistry at CU and the kind of branch campuses and community colleges. And then for another community college, she helped basically start their online chemistry classes, which then took off during COVID, but the business consumed her. So yeah, she didn't have a choice. We needed her here way too much. I like to think about the next thing and design things and make things that are pretty and awesome and beautiful.
Yeah.
She executes it. So yeah, it's perfect because like she is very data driven, logical, and pushes everything through the shop, make sure it's happening, make sure that my designs aren't just going to break production and everything else. So then sends it back to me to reverse engineer it so it's actually producible and on budget. Yeah. So it's a nice little blend now.
Yeah, for sure. So how long have you both been in the business?
10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, long times.
And then did she quit the college professor job before or after kids? Were kids already in the picture?
Kids were in the picture, but then it was kind of a phase out because it went from teaching during the day and then to night classes, and then the online classes were basically on her schedule, so late night, weekends. But then it became too much to try to juggle that with everything else, and so it was kind of a choice of either all in here or all out. And there's so much more growth opportunity for yourself.
Exactly. So, and that's what that's what we're, excited about, because with your 9 to 5 or with the college professor or whatever, the online, she can work harder and not necessarily make more money. When you work harder for your own business,
you're pushing units out the door.
Exactly. Typically that means you're turning more orders or, growing inventory or, whatever, speeding up production time or what you're making process improvements or actually typically seeing that money come back.
You're working harder for yourself and not for somebody else.
Right.
And Pepsi taught me that tomorrow is not guaranteed that you will be employed. No, if it's your fault, not your fault, something that was wrong done by someone else, someone has a bad day, you can be on the cutting block, and you are your own guarantee and your own brand.
Right. Well, and there's
COVID showed that to the rest of us.
Right.
Yes.
It was so funny. Speaking of COVID, when we were moving from Colorado to Florida, I kept trying to convince them to let me do it part-time or full-time remotely. Because I knew it was possible. I had done it a few times when I needed to, when I was like pregnant and just couldn't get into work, but I could work from home comfortably. And I had thrown my back out. And so I needed to like sit and like the drive 45 minutes to work wasn't going to be possible, but I can walk from like my bedroom to, the dining room table to work. And they kept telling me, oh, no, like this is not a remote position. I'm like, okay, but my bosses are in Texas. It's pretty much remote, but okay. And so they wouldn't do it. And then a year or so after we moved, then COVID happened and everyone was remote. And I was like, isn't that
convenient?
Wow. Right. How's it working? It's working, right?
And they don't exist anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, they do, but it's definitely...
It's not the same name.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, they were bought out.
Yeah.
And it's much smaller and different, and most of the people I talk to aren't happy, which I'm not happy for their sadness, but I'm happy that like it feels like it was the right
move. Yeah, it validates the move.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Help. Braden, broken.
Braden, broken. So where are you guys now with, I mean, so that was 10 years ago that your wife joined on, and where are you guys now?
Well, still self-employed.
Right. I mean, like how's the where's the company now as opposed to 10 years ago? So
10 years ago, it was basically the engraving shop.
Okay.
So we were just running the award blanks, and so that's the other thing about me. I don't like having what other people have. So when I started engraving, I didn't like the idea that I was going to go into a business or a corporation with a catalog that the guy that was just in there before me has the same catalog.
Right.
The only way to sell in those awards was to undercut them and race to the bottom.
Right.
So despising that, I decided that what we're going to do is make our own blanks in-house. So everything we do and sell is made here. So that kind of put us on another trajectory that we didn't have to rely on suppliers or anything else.
Right.
So then that's what we were doing, is basically prototyping and running all of our own blanks and just essentially killing it as an engraving business.
Yeah.
So that's where we were then, but then I got tired of that and that mentality and hiding it and not wanting to share anything. So decided to make the pivot to start helping everybody else with the blank supplies, all of our award blanks, and we still do some B2B engraving and cutting services. So we do a lot of industrial product marking, aerospace and medical device cutting.
Nice.
So we'll still hold on to that because they don't have another solution. But everything else is pretty much gone wholesale now.
Okay. And so what kind of blanks and materials do you offer?
Everything you can imagine.
Nice.
So we make our own acrylic award blanks in-house. So they're pretty much always 3/4 inch thick acrylic that we design, cut here. And then, so we have that for the award segment. And then we actually developed our own wood sheets. So we have a veneer MDF core sheets, and it's glitter free because glitter stops laser beams. You can't cut it if it's in there. If you engrave it and it's in there, then you've got chunks of metal that come out of your engraving and ruin the sheet.
Right.
So we have.
It always happened to me with the Columbia Forest sheets from Home Depot, and you do, especially on the Glowforge, it's like they call it glitter, but it's literally metal flecks, and so it's their like signature. It's how they
they color them on what mill made it. Yeah.
Right. And so you do a 2-hour photo engrave, and there'd be some bright red piece of metal in the middle of your wood engrave, and it's shiny like glitter, and it like you see it. And I remember trying and also getting something to cover it. Like I tried covering it with like markers, but it would just wipe off because it's like a piece of metal, small piece of metal. And it, like a lot of times it just meant you had to do it over and hope that there wasn't another piece of that glitter in the plywood. Yeah. So obviously, depending on what you're making, that glitter doesn't matter, but if you're engraving, you're exposing all of that, and it can completely ruin your project and then waste the time that you spent making it.
I think 12 years ago, we realized that whenever you're cutting it, it makes a big difference too, because if you're cutting a profile and it stops on that piece of glitter, then your piece breaks out of the sheet versus cutting through it.
Right. Yep.
So lost so many pieces from that. And that's why I'm adamant on the right material, the right product actually used for lasers, because it makes a huge difference. And as a maker, as an engraving shop, trophy business, your product is your reputation. Right. So you want it perfect. You want it right. And that's why we developed them specifically just for laser use. So soy-based adhesives. We don't do the B1 grading where it's like a B face and then a lower grade on the back. We do face grade on both sides.
Nice.
So you don't have a lesser quality, and you don't have the glitter. You've got soy-based adhesive, the same MDF core throughout all the sheets, so your consistency is always there.
Right. So, that's the other thing too, is the glue voids. Like you do again, you do an engrave, or you'd cut an ornament, and like say that, the edge where, you're putting like your ornament hole or whatever, right? Well, if there's a glue void there, your whole ornament is now shit because there's literally nothing in between it. Or on the edge of your ornament, you see a hole into, sure, you can, depending on the design or what it is, you can maybe fill it with wood filler or whatever, but now that's more time, money, all that goes into it. So you just would
burning through extra stuff.
Yeah. Just not exist.
Yeah. And then so we also work directly with 3M USA. So all of our 3M rolls and sheets are 3M USA products. So it's all QC'd by them, has lot numbers, expiration dates that are perfect and spot on. So if you're using it for a customer's piece, it's going to perform the way 3M should. Right. But then all the other supplemental supplies, like your laser mask, we have it for high tack, low tack, so it's wood or acrylic use. It all makes a difference when you get down into it. But then beyond all of that, we also have all of our years of advice and support. So if you're trying to figure something out, guarantee we've already done it and can walk you through it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Huge too, because just delivering the goods, but if you can't like back any of that up with expertise or experience, then it's kind of like, okay,
gives you that leg up on the competition.
But let me go somewhere else for support.
And everything we sell we've used, and so the glitter free sheets, we use that because we were making awards for Ironman and the triathlon, and the glitter was ruining the pieces, so we had to find a solution for it, and then bringing everything full circle, now we want to offer it to everyone else too.
Right. Yeah, because if you're having that problem, there's a good chance that there's another owner that's having the same problem and has either not found a solution, gave up completely, maybe they just don't even offer that,
or just found a workaround.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I like to solve it.
Right. Can you see so you can search for voids, but you can't really search for those glitter specks in the wood. Right?
And it's essentially, so you've got a giant vat of glue and it's mixing in those metal pieces. So you might get a cluster of 5 pieces, you might get no pieces in an area. So it's randomly throughout, and you can't see it from the outside until you laser cut or engrave, then you start over.
Yeah, that's super frustrating, because the voids you can actually look for. You can, you hold it up to a light or flashlight or whatever, and you can search. What do they call it? Candling the wood or something like that. I avoid wood as much as possible now.
She's all acrylic.
I am.
There you go. We do offer some acrylics, but I like everything basically North American sourced. So what acrylics we do offer are made in North America and sourced through North America. So I like to stock your basics that you need. And honestly, I can't say that I had to have a piece of glitter to sell a job. So I don't feel like I should push it to other people to make them think that they have to have it. So but black, white, clear, matte black, glass green.
Those are all my favorites.
Yes. Use that.
I love the fancy specialty and all those, but
they're gorgeous.
My favorites are matte black, matte white, frosted clear, and frosted green glass. Like, you can use any of those and just make like the coolest, cleanest, classiest thing without needing the specialty stuff. So
but then I look at Houston Acrylic site and drool over all of their selections and all the colors, and I'm so jealous.
Really entire. Like, I avoid their sites.
Thank God.
Because it's very expensive.
She ordered acrylic the other day, and I turned to the wall of acrylic. And said, you can't use any of this.
Listen,
you mean to tell me for your project now, none of this work? Like,
no,
like none of that. Like literally, if we start at the edge of that panel, we can probably fill this with acrylic standing. And what is it? How thick is it?
The one I needed?
No. How thick is your acrylic that you have in there?
Oh, mostly 1/8 of an inch.
So 1/8 of an inch. From that to here, we could probably fill this whole thing. And she ordered more acrylic for a project.
Yes. it's not any project. First of all, my eyes are watering again. I'm not crying, but
I'm crying.
My business expenses.
You're absolutely right. It is, but I see all this acrylic, and you're ordering more.
So I'm working on my LED course, and my LED course. Well, my LED signs. The way I make them, I kind of make them like a shadow box type, and I use several layers of 1/4 inch acrylic. Yes, that's all 1/8 inch.
Okay.
And even if I have it on the shelf, if I use it for the course, then now I have 0 on the shelf. As you know, like
decoration?
I need to. I mean, kind of, like a lot of items right now.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'm gonna get there someday. I'm gonna get back to using them all the time, and I need at least 1 sheet on hand of each option.
I think you have more than one.
No, I do not. But
that's just in case it doesn't work. Yeah, you always need a backup.
See, he understands.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll understand.
Next day shipping is way more expensive than just adding 1 more sheet.
See,
Amanda's down the street. Amanda's down the street.
For now.
Oh, yeah, you guys are lucky then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is also dangerous. Yeah. Because so what also, here's the other thing. The reason I ordered, yes, it's for my course, but Tony, who we've had on, we had him on early on with his kerf tool thing. So he works for 4Ocean, which helps clean up, plastic out of the oceans. And his boss was fixing up an old boat, or he was just fixing it up, and he needed a new panel because he was changing out, I think, like the navigation or something on his boat. And so he wanted to help him because he really likes his boss and wanted to give back. And he had his boss had reached out to a local company to get them made, and it was $400 just for that company to come out and I think they were like laser measuring or whatever. But Tony figured out that this boat company had templates online. So he took those and then had me make it, because he just has a Glowforge. And of course the measurements were 9x20. Well, the Glowforge can only go to like 19. So it was just 1 inch too big. So he needed me to cut it on my bigger laser. And since he was coming by, he was already stopping by Amanda's shop and was like, if you need an order, just place the order and I'll bring it to your house. And then I was like, oh, well, I really need to get started on this course that I've been talking about for almost a year at this point. And so I ordered the stuff.
I'm just saying.
It's not on the wall. There's a shit ton on the wall.
It's a whole wall.
It's not on the wall.
A lot of acrylic. It's a lot of acrylic.
I
saw her.
I'll send you a video.
It's just I saw her on there. And I'm like, you mean to tell me not one of these? Like you can't make anything with this stuff. Like you gotta buy more.
So I mean, seriously though, like if I wanted to make one LED sign, I could make one that was like really small, because I need, depending on the design, I need 1 full sheet of 1/4 inch. Three of them. Like, so if it's a full sheet, that's 1 layer of, and I typically use 2 or 3 layers of 1/4 inch. Well, I don't have 3 1/4 inch of like any color. So
there's always a way to justify it.
Shut your mouth. Anyway, so that brings you to where you are now, right? Do you have any do we miss anything? Do you have any goals coming up, or is it just to offer more, or?
So it never stops with me.
Right.
As soon as I figure something out, we've got a great handle on the wood sheets and how it's built, the construction, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, pre-finished, unfinished. So I feel like it's reached its peak, if you will. So since that happened, I go down a whole nother rabbit hole, and I will call it a rabbit hole because it's got to be like that.
Right.
So now we're working on more award blanks.
Nice.
So basically, some of these ones are just prototypes. So getting it so that we have color radiating through the 3/4 inch acrylic.
Cool. Yeah.
And then coming up with all the new designs of that, and then working in mixed media, different materials into it too. So there's going to be an entire line of that coming out, and then
Nice.
Even more. There's so much.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, our brains are always going, and it's almost hard to like focus on like one thing before your brain is already like, okay, but what about this? But like, okay,
yeah,
we could also do this, and they're all awesome. So it's like, how do you trying to focus on one before you move on to the next?
Yes, it's impossible.
Yeah. So I always wondered how, and you don't have to share if it's like a trade secret or anything like that, but the acrylic awards that kind of like have the color that comes out of the side, but like straight on, it looks clear. How does that, is that like some kind of colorant that's like mixed through in the whole sheet and then just how it's cut, or like
it is secondary process actually. So basically, like this guy, it's completely clear head on, right? But then if you have a thick piece of acrylic and you look through the side and try to put something on it, it acts like a mirror. You can't actually see what's on the side. But then when you bond into the bottom, then it turns into a shining piece. So a few trial and errors going on, but once you bond it into the acrylic, then you can get the radiating colors.
Okay. So
and it basically reflects.
So typically that means that it's on a pre-cut thing, because you do it after cutting, correct? After cutting the shape?
There's a few different ways I'm testing. So one is pre-cut, post-cut, and then trying to figure out which way eliminates as many secondary processes as possible, because
streamlining it.
Yeah, in the end of the day, I'm competing with a lot of import stuff. So I need to be as low price as possible. So yeah, less hands, more fast.
Right. Less hands, more so I mean, you've pivoted like tons of times. And so I guess we're going to be doing some pivoting soon. So what's some advice for, I guess, new or struggling laser owners, or those who are finding themselves at a point where they need to pivot, either job situation, life situation, whatever. Several times you've talked about how you kind of like started from nothing. You started with like that last bit in your bank account, or COVID completely like halted whatever plans you were doing at the time. How do you go about doing that?
The whole pivot. Well, so at Penn State, one thing that really stuck to me in a class was that they said in your career path, you're going to change careers 5 to 10 times. Well, so in my mind, I might still be in the same industry, but each little pivot could be that career path change. And so I'm not afraid of it. I'm kind of expecting it. And by expecting it, you're not going to be resistant to it, but more open to a change and another opportunity. The medical device and aerospace cutting is a whole nother pivot, and it's lucrative. It's great. It's repeat business. So I guess the biggest advice is be open to it. But then when you pivot, look at what you're pivoting to, and kind of project what that income, revenue stream, and life cycle will be like. I love awards. So GS2 Awards, it fits. You've got businesses that are ordering awards off of you. Say Johnny is ordering the awards. He quits, goes to another company. They hire Susie that fills his position. She knows nothing of where it comes from, but they say, this is where we get our awards. So no matter who's in that position, they're ordering the awards because that's what the company does. So now you've got yearly repeat business. And it really helps, especially January, February, March, whenever everything's slow. And then if you can get in with race directors, each race director has 3 to 5 different race events. So at a very small amount, you'll do 12 awards for that. And if you can convince them to do their race medals, that's 500 to 3,000 award or finisher medals. So, and then times 3 to 5 events, and then they tell their race director friends, so you can instantly get packed out.
So Mark with Big Blue Laser Designs, he he really pushes awards. Now he creates most of his from scratch with plywood or acrylic or whatever, but he doesn't sell a lot of like physical products. He does mostly, the designs, but he still does make awards because they can be so simple, but they will pay a ton of money for them. And they usually don't need like one. It almost always, the awards are like a wholesale
ceremony. Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, oh, there's an award for this, or there's 20 awards for this whole team, or 300 for the whole company, or you know what I mean? It's like, it's a recurring thing. It's something that they want quality, items for. The award side is a really, really good side to get into. And the market allows for those higher prices. They'll pay a lot for awards. Like I just look at JDS and even, their blank awards, they're just the blank prices alone are pretty expensive. I mean, it's a inch thick acrylic sometimes, or it's a hefty
$12-15. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, just it costs $15 just for the blank. That means I have to charge, 2, 3, 4 times that, depending on how much more work I'm putting into it and all of that. And so that means that like that $15 blank, you're probably charging, anywhere from $50 to $100 for it. Or so there's definitely a lot of money in the award side. So, if you don't know what you want to do, or this is something you might enjoy doing. And one thing I want to touch on too, that you said, is that you really enjoy doing awards. And so I've seen a lot of people who are just kind of like making whatever the customer comes to them to make.
Or
and they're
chasing
like,
the money.
Yeah. And they're drowning, or they're hating what they're doing. They're not finding it fun anymore. You need to lean into the stuff that you enjoy doing, because the quality will be better. It'll be easier to sell because you actually believe it and you like it. And, you kind of like, not that you don't care if you get the sale or not, but it's easier to get the sale because you love it. And so it just, you ooze
push your passion. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so I've noticed, the stuff that I enjoy making is the stuff that makes me laugh. The inappropriate stuff, the goofy stuff, the funny stuff. And, I used to tell myself that wasn't really like a niche or a market, and it is. And it just, I needed to find my people instead of trying to like, oh, nobody wants to buy this stuff, they're just going to laugh. Like there are people who are going to laugh, but then also buy it. So you got to find your people and lean into the stuff that you enjoy making, because then it won't make it feel like work so much.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted to, whenever I first started the company out here, I wanted to go into high-end glass engraving and do just gallery style work. So I was doing sandblasting on glass blown vases, and then laying 18 karat gold into them, and then selling through just all the high-end galleries.
Yeah.
But starting in the recession, it didn't pay the bills. So I had to find another way to earn money without losing kind of that passion I had. So I found with the awards, I can design them, get my artistic kick out of that, reverse engineer it to figure out how to produce it, and actually be able to turn profits. Yeah. And that's where I love it. And like, so I don't know how well you can see these. But
glasses, right?
Yeah, sunglasses. So Iron Man wanted I think it was a 20-year anniversary award for a Florida race. Yeah. And so sunglasses fit. So we cut it in-house out of metal.
Oh, cool.
And then UV printed and bent them to be sunglasses.
That's awesome.
So it's never just normal.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is that
a wearable award.
Right?
Yes.
There's a lot of freedom in that too. You can still, like, an award doesn't have to be, the teardrop shape or a plaque or rectangle or whatever. Like, you can find ways to make it fun. And then also, in doing that, you're going to set yourself apart from the other people who are only doing those other awards. Like
from the catalog.
Yeah. The one that I do for that, the local,
the food.
Yeah. The wet palette. Her logo is like an art palette, with the paint art palette. And so she, the typical like standard shape of award wasn't working for her because she had this unique shape that she really wanted. And so that's been fun to like play with that same shape and like, how can we make this, cool and different and wow for these like super like prestigious restaurants and like, giving them an award that they're not like, what is this crap?
So something that they have this prestige restaurant they want to, display something that they want to display.
Right.
Yeah.
We're working on a fun one right now. So like with the race director market, there's a race director putting on a donut dash. So all medals and all awards are donuts, and I'm designing a freestanding donut for them.
Oh my God. You must show me that.
Yes.
Where can I enter that race? Because that sounds like a race I can.
I believe that circuit's in California, but
all right. Well, Will, I'm coming.
Yes.
I'm gonna stay at Will's warehouse while donut race.
The donut race.
Yeah.
You don't even know what the donut race is.
I mean, it sounds like something I can get down with. I'm gonna go to
the awards are for the donut mile, so you got to go the mile and then house donuts and then continue on.
I can do a mile of donuts, I think.
No, you have to I think you have to run
to the donuts.
Yes.
A mile.
Yeah, I can run the donuts. It's called motivation.
I want to see this.
Okay, it's called motivation. If it's like a line of donuts for a mile, you see me.
You're ridiculous.
And then I get a bigger donut at the end.
What was it the other day that didn't John, our son, JR, he said something
His name's
about
John too.
Yeah, true. But he said something about cops and donuts the other day. Do you remember that? What was that?
Yeah, man, what was it?
He talked about the stereotypical cops and donuts the other day, and we were both like,
I said something about there was like an officer there or something.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, is he getting donuts?"
We were like, "What?"
He's like a donut shop or something. Yeah.
He's like, "Where's the donut shop?" And we're like, "It's not."
And he wants to be a cop.
He does.
The donuts are delicious. I get them.
Are. I mean, yeah, your son. Donuts are life for your son too.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is a good point to talk about the sale. Do you remember the code? Because I forgot the code.
I would check my phone, but it's currently doing a video.
Yep. I got it. I don't know what's going on with my eyes.
She's crying.
Such a sad day. Just kidding. Okay, so he's giving all of the listeners 5% off.
Okay. So
RBP 5. And then plug your website for us?
GS2Awards.com.
That's easy.
Yeah.
And is it the same minus the .com obviously for social media?
Correct. Yeah. So GS2 Awards on Facebook, and then we have a GS2 Awards tips and tricks page where if you need any help to figure out how to do something, I am there to reply and help everybody through it.
Awesome. Nice. And so where is that? Is that also on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook, tagged to our Facebook page too.
Okay. Cool.
And then we're on Instagram too, GS2 Awards. Need to monitor that more, but
right.
You know,
I know it's
the
hard.
life.
You kind of have to choose one. I do I have Facebook for the groups and then Instagram for everything else. My Facebook page, the only thing that's on there is because I've posted it to my Instagram and they have the little thing that you can toggle it to where it'll also share to my Facebook page. That's the only reason there's anything on my Facebook page.
It makes it so helpful.
And then he also did, typically we do 2 codes.
Right.
So he did a second bigger
general
code.
admission and then a VIP for our patrons.
And so if you're a patron, you get a bigger discount. Yeah. And so that'll be posted in the Patreon feed.
So if you're not subscribed to Patreon, subscribe now.
Yes.
It's the lowest is what? $4?
$4? Yeah, $4.
$4.
$4. You get all of the discounts and you get to help support us.
Yeah, and then you get the podcast on Friday instead of Monday.
You get early access and all the discounts.
That's right. And also on Patreon, you also get the YouTube link early on Fridays as well as opposed to Monday. So go ahead and do that and like and subscribe on YouTube.
Smash that like button.
She said, not me. Well, thanks for spending about an hour with us.
Yeah.
And
my pleasure.
About awards and business and everything.
Yeah.
And for everyone else, stay tuned to the life update coming up.
All right.
And we're back. That was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
He was cool. His beard
awards.
was epic. I forgot to tell him.
I was
during
like, man, I
episode.
wish I was allowed to grow a beard because I can grow a beard like that, but I'm not allowed to grow a beard like that.
I like it on other people.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, babe. I like that one.
I know.
And a little bit shorter.
I know. I got to shave. I know.
You don't have to.
No, but I have to.
Whatever.
It's the dynamic.
So talk about the sad stuff before we talk about the other
a quick
stuff.
little update. My grandmother is back home, not
finally
in the condition we want to, but she's comfortable. She's is it in hospice or on hospice?
Yeah.
Yep. So she's home. She's home in the hospice program. Which it's a lot easier for everyone. She's more comfortable. My mom's
it's bittersweet.
My mom's demeanor has complete 180. She's more comfortable.
We
she
saw
has
her.
More...
Yeah, we saw her on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And your grandma had kind of been going back and forth a little bit in between hospital and rehab, and initially, the goal was to get her walking back to walking or somewhat mobile.
Yeah.
So that she could, just go home.
Right.
And you would get a little bit there and then go 2 steps back.
It's like if anyone has a relative or something like around, in their 80s.
She's 88, isn't she?
You're always, she just turned 88. You're always like one event away from
and it was the
your
same
demise.
Thing with my
either you either you hear about people falling and breaking a hip and then they,
and then the decline
6
starts.
years later they're gone, or they get a bad cold, it turns into pneumonia. You're very you're very nothing can really happen to you when you're 80.
Yeah.
So she got COVID.
Yeah.
And the COVID was like her event that began. Right. She already has Alzheimer's, dementia, but that was the physical event that made her body start.
And due to the back and forth, it was exhausting, not only for your grandmother. I mean, that's a lot.
Right.
And then also for your mom.
Right.
And we saw her yesterday, and it was, she had to go back to the hospital from rehab again for a transfusion. And your mom, I mean, she was pale.
Yeah.
She was much thinner.
She had gone home, because she had gone home for the night, and then got the phone call of, do you want us to take her to the hospital for a blood transfusion or not?
Right.
And obviously she opted to go. So she met her at the hospital, but that meant that she didn't sleep all night because, from the time that they did it in the emergency room to the time they admit you to a room and everything. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course my mom didn't feel comfortable just leaving her. To do all that, and also because doctors come in, they have information, and obviously they can't tell her, and so, that whole ordeal. So she was in pretty she was just tired. She was just tired, and she got home yesterday.
So if you know anything about Latin families, every time she calls you, she's asking if you've eaten.
Right.
And so I looked at her, and she was worried about everybody else but herself, because that's just how she is.
Right.
And I said, "Have you eaten?"
Yeah. And what she say?
She goes,
chips.
She goes, "Yeah.
Chips and a soda and coffee
and tea or coffee or something." Yeah. And I was like, "Maria, that's not food."
Yeah. If I told her that,
please eat.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get some soup. From the. Do you want some soup?" And
just get yourself soup.
Yeah. Feed yourself.
Yeah.
She's okay right now.
So now that she's home, hospital bed, oxygen machine, the whole thing, it's just more comfortable. And now there won't be any more.
Your mom actually looked like it just literally 9 days. She was high sprung yesterday, and then
because now everything will come to her at the house.
Yeah.
There won't be a doctor visit. There won't be an emergency.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Everything comes to the house. So my mom knows that she doesn't have to leave. Unfortunately, though, that means that time is limited, so it's now quality and keeping her comfortable. Yeah. But we all feel like that it's the best. It's the best for right now. For her situation, it's the best move. We're all comfortable with it, and now when we visit, we just go to my grandma's house instead of going to where is she? The rehab at the hospital. What room is she in? It's not just go to the house.
Just more comfortable being in your space. Sure, the hospital bed, you know, those are only as comfortable as they
my
can
mom
get.
said, I talked to her this morning, and my mom said that she's the best she's been since she's been in the whole thing.
Yeah,
like she's more because she's home.
Right.
She's in her familiar, even though she's like
there's not all
in a
these
hospital
strange
bed.
people coming in and poking her, and you know,
and then
it was
also
hard seeing her, you know, because they're trying to do stuff, and one, she doesn't know what's going on for two reasons: the dementia, and then also the language barrier.
Right.
And so they're doing all these things, and they don't feel good, or they're uncomfortable, or they hurt.
And it's strangers doing it.
Yeah,
because
and
it's always
she's
someone
like,
different.
you know, hitting them like, get off me, because she doesn't understand.
Right.
And my heart just shattered when. But I mean, I felt okay, thankful that you were there, because they were giving her like a bath. They were washing her down.
They were changing her. Right.
She, you know, had gone to the bathroom, and you know, your grandma was like startled and like said something in Spanish and was kind of hitting her, and the lady telling her it's okay, and you're like, no, she's saying it's too hot.
Right.
And so like I'm like, oh my God, thank God that you were there.
Right. The water,
because you know, the other lady wouldn't have known what she was saying. She would just think like, what the hell is this lady doing to me? Get off of me. And it was that, no, like it's actually
the water was
too warm. And so that kind of like crushed me a little bit, because it's like it adds to that guilt of feeling like someone has to be in the room at all times as like an advocate for them.
Well, obviously, of course, because like you said, the language barrier had the nurse spoken Spanish.
Right.
There, you know, that would be, okay, you know, sorry, let me
but then, I mean, still, then the other part is the dementia. Does she understand why, like, then later she was trying to take her blood pressure, or and then she was also trying to check her sugar. And she didn't understand why she was doing that. I think because of the dementia. Because of the
dementia, because my mom always does it.
Right. So she's like, who the hell are you?
Who are you why are you pinching me? Like, what's going on here? And my mom would be like, oh, you know, it's time to do your sugar in Spanish, and it's my mom, and she'd be, you know, she would let it. She'd like, you know, she'd still like react to the pinch, but
which makes you feel like you have to be there 24/7 and awake. So I totally sympathize with your mom.
So now she feels more comfortable. She has more control. She can check her sugar when she needs to. She like she's the one. I mean, there is a nurse there, obviously, but she's the one that's like. She's like the head nurse. So she knows what's going on. So she knows what's going on, as opposed to having to wait around and being told what's going on. You know, has my mom eaten? Have you checked her sugar? Have you done? No, she does it, and you know, it's almost back to normal, minus my grandmother being like, because my grandmother, before she got COVID, she was beginning to get a little aggressive. So now that's gone.
Because there was an instance like in the car where she like pulled your mom's hair
when they went to the doctor to get her tested. The doctor came out to the car because my grandmother refused to go
get out
in.
Of the car.
So they came out. They gave her like a whatever, like a once over, you know, to check her vitals and stuff like that. And she was like pulling my mom's hair and stuff like that because she didn't want to. You know, they were doing everything there in the passenger seat. And she didn't even want to be there to begin with. So. She was really aggravated, and she started becoming, you know, a little more violent.
It's
and
hard.
And
my grandfather did the same thing.
Just saying things to my mom that she didn't like to hear. And it's easy to say, like, listen, you know, it's not her, but it's coming from that person. It's
coming out of their mouth. It's their hand that's hitting you. I remember when my grandfather was in hospice, and you know, the nurses couldn't administer medication, and so we had to, and which was even worse, because it's like a stranger can give it to them but not their family, and like, you know, and so he would be especially, you know, combative when we would try to give him something, or I don't know, just change something, or I don't know what, but anytime we would try to do something, and he was, I mean, unlike your grandmother who weighs like 90 to 100 pounds right now.
She's when I had to like roll her on her side, I was like, you don't weigh anything.
Bumpa even thin was like 200 pounds. And so, you know, there was some power behind those hits, like much like it kind of reminds me of Jackson. He's a year and a half, almost 2, and there's some power behind those hits. Like, they hurt. He's caught me in the eye a couple times, and I'm like, ooh.
And his move with that headbutt is killer.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, it was hard. You know, he would say some mean stuff and hit you, and you knew that it was the disease, but that didn't mean that it didn't hurt your feelers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So she's like past, like she's on the other side of that now.
Yeah.
And I mean, so the thing is, it was gonna happen. It will happen. Like, you know, it would happen either at the day at the rehab, or it would happen at the in the emergency room or at the hospital, or in transition.
Yeah.
And my mom would be, you know, I know knowing my mom, it would be hard. It was hard for her to leave her at night so that she can go get some rest.
Right.
You know, because I can only imagine her thinking, will I see her again after she leaves? Because I mean,
that's what was always hard.
That's where we're at.
So he was doing hospice at home, and that was easy because we were all sleeping in the same home for the most part, me and my sister.
Right.
And when he went into the hospice facility because he needed more, like he I forget why, but he needed more care. Like you know, a facility. And that was hard because we'd spend, you know, most of the day there, and we'd be like eating in the room, and he was just kind of there.
Right.
But yeah, each day that you would leave, it was hard to leave because it was like, is this
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're essentially like, as sad as and as hard as it says, like you're waiting for that day. So it's like, you know, what's gonna happen now? Like we live about 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes away. So, and we have a lot of stuff going on,
right?
That I can't just be there all the time,
right?
So the chance of it happening and me not there are great.
Yeah.
But I'm at ease knowing that she's home.
Yeah. Same.
And that when it happens, she'll be at home. She'll be comfortable.
And we do the best we can with our situation. We go as much as we can.
Right. But more piece of her passing there than at that rehab facility, which I didn't want you to go to see her there. And I walked away. I went there, and then like the next day she went to the hospital and then hospice. But getting there, I couldn't help but think like, man, I wish we had more money.
Yeah.
I wish we could afford to put her somewhere, because unfortunately
it sucks that it's like that.
We were relying on Medicare and Medicaid for where she was.
Right.
And then, you know, obviously my mom picked the best scenario with the best option with how far with how far it is from the house and everything like that. So she wasn't, you know, I walked in and I tell my mom, like, well, I guess we start in Cuba and we end in Cuba, huh? Because it really felt like a Cuban hospital.
Yeah.
Like that's what it felt like walking in. And you know, I walked away saying I wish we had more money so we could put her somewhere better.
Yeah.
But now she's home.
She has better.
Right. Now she's home. Yeah. And it could happen any day, but at least she's home and comfortable.
So send your positive thoughts and hugs this way. And hopefully just a little teaser on the next episode. Hopefully we might be able to tell you what the hell we've been holding in this whole time. But on another note, when this airs, my birthday sale will still be active.
Right.
So make sure to check that out. I think you heard me bitching about it on the last couple episodes. Don't purchase 30 new items and expect them all to be easy to add to the site.
Right.
And so go check out all of those new items that I added, and take advantage of the discount. It's not huge. It's 6%, which is more than I offer any of the returning customers. It's just a few points less than what, you know, I offered to all of the conference attendees, but I don't have huge margins on a lot of my stuff. So it definitely leaves not so much room to discount them and still make money. But so the code is Happy B Day. It's all capitals. I'm not sure if caps matters or not. But Happy B Day, and you get 6% off 2 or more items. So if you've been wanting to try out something new, you can do that and get a little bit of discount and help support us in the process. But that sale ends last day of May. So May 31st, probably midnight Eastern time, because that's where we be. So I think that's all the stuff we got.
That's all we got. Yeah, I really, really hope that we get to share with you next week.
Yeah.
Our exciting news.
Right.
With the sad news comes really exciting news as well.
It's been an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. It's a lot of ups and downs. So that's been another great episode of the Riding Bike Project with Crystal and John.
Bye.
Maybe we're all done.